Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for staying around and having lunch and hear me speak. My name is Eric Francis. I'm going to be presenting to you today on depth of knowledge. How many of you have ever heard of depth of knowledge? Raise your hand if you would, please. How many of you received this poster as part of your Common Core training? Please raise your hand. If you notice, there's a little bit of a message about it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a prime example of alternative facts in education. If you don't believe me, just go to that link on the bottom of the page. It's dead. It doesn't work. So how did we get here? 1983, the Reagan administration passed a law called, a report called A Nation at Risk, which mandated we have standards and assessments. Then in 1992, we started creating objectives using Bloom's taxonomy. So we had all our kids thinking deeply and demonstrating higher order thinking, but they weren't transferring and using it in different contexts. So that's when this gentleman, Dr. Norman Webb, wrote his paper in 1996 about the research criteria for evaluating assessments for the purpose of education policy. And he gave us these levels. So that's where depth of knowledge came from. Now we go to 2004, and we're in Florida, and they have the FCATs, and they align their assessments to depth of knowledge. Well, there was no visual for it, so a third grade teacher decided to create a graphic and put it on the internet, and this is what that teacher created. Now, it's completely inaccurate and incorrect, because as we know from depth of knowledge, it's not about the verb, it's about what comes after the verb. So this is actually, there you go, okay? This is actually incorrect. So if you have this in your room, and if you're using it, it is an inaccurate tool. That has not been proven by research and theory. Now, I'm going to take us now further into the future to 2008. So now, we're all adopting the Common Core standards. And with the Common Core, they have us demonstrating higher order thinking, communicating depth of knowledge. The problem is, there isn't a graphic and we don't know what depth of knowledge is. But that's okay, because the U.S. Department of Education is going to give us Race to the Top funds. And we are going to give everybody in the nation money to go and train us all on what is higher order thinking and depth of knowledge. So that is how the concept of depth of knowledge started to become more widespread in 2008. Now, that takes us to Missouri. Someone at the Department of Education in Missouri did a Google search, and they went online to look at and see, are there any visuals out there, like pyramids or even wheels, such as this one. So what they did was they said, oh, look, it's a wheel online. It must be a credible source. So what they did was they decided to make this, which we were all given. And that is how the poster came to life. It came from the Department of Education in Missouri. Now, here's what happened. They put it as part of their Common Core trainings. Now, 45 other states who also adopted the Common Core, they looked and said, what is Missouri doing? Well, they have this poster for depth of knowledge. So what happened is they started incorporating it into their trainings. And now 45 other states are giving teachers just like us this poster telling us that depth of knowledge, this is what it's all about. And PD people like me, we're putting it in our presentations telling you this is what depth of knowledge is all about. Even Texas adopted depth of knowledge. So now, depth of knowledge, when it comes to what it is, that's the visual, and that's how depth of knowledge spread across our nation. Now, like you, I'm in the Common Core trainings, and I'm looking saying, this doesn't seem right. And I realized it's not. So that's me, like Rick Grimes. And that's the walking DOKs. And I'm out there screaming that DOK bill is inaccurate, and the way we're using DOK is inaccurate. How many of you have had administrators say, when I come in your room, I want to see more than a DOK 1 or DOK 2? You can't evaluate DOK like you're in Dancing with the Stars. You're in front of the room and you go, oh, I think I'm doing DOK. Your principal goes, DOK 2. Your assistant principal goes, DOK 2. Your instructional coach goes, DOK 1. Why? Because they had training on that wheel. DOK is about ceilings. And this is the visual I created and I put on the internet. And actually now it's been validated because Karen Hess and Dr. Webb, they agree with this is what it is. When we're talking about depth of knowledge, we're actually making it an instructional model. DOK 1 is what is the knowledge. You're asking kids to acquire and gather information. DOK 2 is how can that knowledge be used. You're asking them to apply it, to explain it. DOK 3 is why can that knowledge be used. And DOK 4 is how else can you use that knowledge. But I'll give you a more layman's term for it. When you're doing DOK 1, your classroom experience is like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Jeopardy. It's not coming up. There it is. Okay? DOK 2 is like you're on Top Chef or Hell's Kitchen. DOK 3 is if you're like on Survivor or The Apprentice, and DOK 4 is you're on Shark Tank. So if you have this in your room, you go back and tell your administrators that that is incorrect, and here's your message for it. Thank you very much. I addressed this in my book, which is in the back. I appreciate your time, and on something. Thank you very much.